Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at that triplet of switchers that I had pulled out of that original big lot from this video here that you can see. And we're going to clean these things up, we're going to get them back on the rails, we're going to see how they perform, and hopefully it's better than when we initially pulled them out. Let's get to cleaning. So the first switcher I'm going to tackle is the AHM model, this Boston and Maine blue shelled thing here. And the shell is pretty gnarly. We're going to clean that up as well. I'll do that off camera. It's got some dust. It's got this really gnarly looking, I think that's a old spider nest in the cab. We need to get rid of that. But first I'm going to go ahead and tackle the power truck. And interestingly enough, this frame only has a power truck. I don't think that's not common anymore. Of course, both trucks are typically powered with diesels these days. But on this one, it is just the one. Now, I took off the fuel tank. It was one single screw. It's just weight. It doesn't actually connect to anything within the frame. I didn't actually have to take it off, but I did. Just a heads up, if you have one of these, you do not have to take that off if you're going to service it. So just spinning the drive shaft, I can tell this is a 3-pole motor. It's not going to run well even after it's cleaned, but maybe we can get it running more consistently, maybe a little nicer. We'll have to wait and see. And you can see that commutator is also just streaked with grease, and we're going to clean that as well. The first thing I'm going to do is unclip the power truck from the frame, and it's like many other designs today for diesel locomotives. It's just a clip that holds it to the chassis, allows it to rotate. Once that clip is off, the power truck with a little coercion will pop out of the frame. Next, I'm going to take off the side frames, which are a single large piece. You just gotta be careful here, the wheels will fall out immediately as you take the side frames off. You can see there are red gears inside here, and this one was dry as a bone. There's no grease at all in there. We'll get those greased up. But first I'm going to tackle these wheels with some odorless mineral spirits to get those nice and clean. Next I'm going to take the fiberglass pen and just spin it. The commutator on this motor is really small. It's in a really tight spot, so I just held the pen up to the commutator and just spun the drive shaft with my finger just to get it going, to get it clean, and it ended up looking a lot shinier, a lot cleaner than it did prior, so hopefully this helps. And I'm going to follow up with a quick Q-tip just to get any of that excess dirt off. With that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and just hit up the motor bearings with some of the Labelle machine oil. This is my go-to for all my maintenance needs. And I give the drive shaft a few spins just to work that oil into all the little places it needs to go. And if there's any excess, you could just use a Q-tip. Cleans up real easy. I'm going to add some Labelle grease to these gears on this power truck because, like I said, they are very dry. So I'm going to just put a dab of grease on each gear. Not too much, because when the locomotive starts running, this grease will distribute itself evenly across all the gears. I'll also add just a small drop to the gears on the drive axles as well. And with the wheels back in place, we'll go ahead and put the side frames back on. Just a heads up that the side frames on this particular model, and maybe others by AHM, they only fit one way, so if you got them wrong, just spin them around. and they just snap back into place. And with the side frames back on, I'm just going to fish the power truck back through. We'll get that dog bone into the drive shaft, pop the power truck back through, and we'll put the clip back on, and that thing's not going to go anywhere. I'm not going to film myself taking off the unpowered truck and cleaning those wheels because it's not much to it. There's no gears to grease or anything like that. It's very straightforward. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that off camera. But first I want to go ahead and actually give this shell a good cleaning. Some warm water and some soap, get rid of that old spider nest, some of the dust. We'll go ahead and get that cleaned as well, and we'll give it a test run. Now I'm going to take this to the sink, be right back. And while I have the shell drying, I just wanted to go ahead and do a little test without the shell and see if my work, improved anything. So the chassis weights are just kind of loosely fitted, and I just put them on, and we'll give this thing a quick run, see if it's any better. Fingers crossed. Yeah, that definitely seems a lot smoother. It's a lot quieter now too. Not that you can hear it. I'm going to go ahead and hook this up to a small train, and you'll see it running at the end of the video, so please stay tuned. Alright, so next let's dive into this Southern Pacific SW7, this blue box model. And first things first, I've already disassembled it. It's fairly straightforward to disassemble most blue box models anyway. I figured I'd just get that out of the way. There's just these two tabs on the side of the chassis here, and they fit into these little areas here on the shell by the fuel tanks. Very simple. You can see it right there. Very straightforward. Pry the shell apart, pull the shell up. I also went ahead and removed the trucks, and we'll clean up any areas with metal contact. We're gonna clean up the commutator with the fiberglass pen. Maybe the top contact here on top of the motor too. It's got just a little bit of corrosion. We'll shine that up a little bit. And then the ends of the contacts, that contact strip that's so common with blue box models, we're just going to go ahead and shine that. I would probably replace that with actual wire rather than this contact strip, but since I'm not keeping this model, it's not something I'm doing. I'm going to also clean up the metal contacts on the power trucks as well. Just anywhere where there's an electrical connection. The side frames pop off pretty easy, so I'm just going to do that to get easier access to the wheels. I'm not going to remove the wheels from the power trucks here, but we'll give these wheels a good scrub. The commutators on these blue box motors are a lot easier to get at with the fiberglass pens, so we're just going to give it a good shine. We'll rotate the motor a few times, make sure we're hitting every single part, and that looks much better. Next, I'm just going to go ahead and add some grease to these gear towers here. On my own blue box models, this is about all I do. I don't take off the base keeper plates to try to get grease inside, unless I'm doing a really thorough deep cleaning. I don't think this model really needs it. It just needs a little bit of grease here, and that'll go through the truck and grease it up really nice. It's a nice free-rolling truck too, so shouldn't be any issues. Sometimes the grime is a little too tough and sticks to the wheel a little too much, so I like to take a toothpick or another piece of wood or balsa maybe and just scrape at it, and that doesn't damage the wheel, and it helps remove a lot of that gunk. It makes it a little easier for the odorless mineral spirits to work their magic. And once the wheels are cleaned, I'm going to go ahead and hit those motor bearings with the Labelle oil, of course. These blue box motors can have some tight spaces to try to fit in, so kind of have to get creative if the flywheels won't move. One end was okay. The other end, I had a little bit of trouble squeezing the end of the bottle into the between the bearing and the flywheel. So I put a drop of oil on the back of an X-Acto knife and ran that into the area there, you can see. And that seems to have worked. We got that bearing taken care of. We'll get this one. There's no issue with this one here. No trouble at all. Next I'm going to take apart the worm gear and clean those up a bit for both power trucks, get them disassembled and then re-lubed and re-oiled. We'll clean out any old grease out of this worm gear as well. Old grease is a good way to make a model not run well at all. If it's just caked in there and dried up, it's not doing its job. And once the bearings are cleaned, we'll add a touch of the label grease in. And I've always struggled with these power trucks and these blue box models with the old U-joint here that just, this universal that just stays inside the flywheel. I much prefer the newer hex drives. I think they're a little easier to work on. But once you get it in and you can line it up, it's fine. You just got to make sure nothing's binding. And in this case, I ended up taking out the motor. But, you know, it's fine. We'll get it back together. Honestly, I think taking the motor out makes it just a little easier if you're not going to update the drive shafts or anything like that with these old blue box models here. And once you just get everything lined up, it all fits in just fine. It's a little finicky at first, but definitely doable. I was expecting that motor mount to crack. Thankfully, it stayed in place just fine. Thankfully, not a piece I have to worry about. We'll go ahead and spin the flywheels, get any of the oil and the grease down into the places it needs to be. And we'll add the contact strip back in and just put the shell back on and the side frames. No problem whatsoever. I'm going to oil these wheel bearings as well, just give them a drop each. Anything with these Athearn style wheels, it makes sense to do that, I think. And then the shell just pops back on. Make sure you get it going the right direction. It can really only go one way. Then it helps to spread the shell apart while putting the shell back in. This one fought me just a little bit, but once you get it back in place and it's fine, this one's ready to go. We're just going to dust it off, and I'm going to hit up some of the handrails with the fiberglass pen just to clean them up a little bit. There's some that have a spot of rust here or there. Easy enough to do. And I think I'm going to go ahead and put a small amount of CA glue on those handrail stanchions just to keep them from bending too much. I might even paint these a dark gray to go ahead and, you know, tidy up the model a little bit. I haven't decided yet. Since this one doesn't have a box and it's been assembled, it's not going to hurt its value or anything, I don't think. But there you go. This one's ready to run. And we got that one. We got the AHM. We just have one more to do. And that last one, of course, is this Atlas switcher, S4, if I remember correctly. Another Boston and Maine. Really nice little piece. We're going to clean these wheels. I'm going to take the shell off the chassis, or at least I'm going to attempt to. And let me show you what I ended up doing. I ended up unscrewing this screw underneath in front of the fuel tank, and you really don't need to do this unless you're taking the motor off, but I ended up doing it anyway. You don't really need to do that to start, I'll say that much. So to get the shell off, I had to look up exactly how to do it. There's a tab under the very front. You can kind of see it right there. It's at the very face of the shell. Yeah, right there. And it's really hard to get at. Everyone was saying push the front of the shell and it'll just pop off. But I ended up using the end of this end of my file there, and I just lightly applied some pressure to that tab, pushed it back a little bit, and then the shell just kind of slides forward off the chassis there. And you can see the weight and the motor, the flywheels, the little light board and everything. The motor and all that becomes loose if you unscrew that screw that I ended up doing, and I decided not to fully disassemble it. It seemed rather unnecessary. So I went ahead and screwed that screw back in, and instead focused on the drivetrain, or the gears rather, and the trucks. So taking off the side frames here, I think it's one big piece, give us easier access to the wheels. A light bit of struggle here. I'm gonna just carefully pop the wheels out. I believe this is when I realized that the side frames have wires that connect them to the rest of the frame. That's where the pickups are, so there are wires that go to those frames, and made it kind of difficult to get the wheels out. But that bottom piece comes off, and that allows you to get access to the gears and re-loop the gears. And I'm gonna clean up those wheels. They're brass, so they'll pick up dirt pretty easily, unfortunately. And then we'll clean out any old grease out of this bottom base keeper plate. Then I'm just going to clean up the electrical contacts a little bit here, scraping off that excess carbon that's built up. Toothpick comes in handy for such work. And with the pickups cleaned, I'm going to go ahead and put these wheels back into those side frames. Next, I'm going to apply some Labelle oil just to the bearing surfaces here. There's no bearings on this model, it's just round axles and round slots, but it should be fine. Then we're going to put some grease on these red gears. Just a small dab here and there. Really squeezing this tube. I think I'm running out with all the projects I've been working on lately. And then we put the base keeper plate back on. And we'll repeat that for the other truck down here, but I don't think I'm going to film that. No point in really showing that twice. Next, I'm going to add some oil here to the bearing surfaces on the drive chain, down at the end of the gearbox, of course. Can't really get at the one under the cab, and I'm not going to disassemble this that far, unfortunately, but it runs well enough that I'm not that worried about it. We're just going to hit the areas we can hit. And I'm going to take a soft paintbrush and just brush off this excess dust off of the walkways and the pilot. It's easy to do when you have the handrails taken off. They just kind of pop out, which is really handy. And then we slide the shell back on. Give a good press on the front. It should just snap back into place. Now all we need to do is add the handrails back. Put it on the track, give it a test. Let that grease get between the gears. And this was already a really nice running locomotive. I'm not worried at all about it on the test track. But we'll get it set up, and I've got some footage of all three of these little switchers around the test loop. Why don't we check them out and call it a day after that? And that's going to do it today, folks. Thank you so much for joining me here as I take a look at these little switcher locomotives, get them up and running at least as best as I could. And I hope you enjoyed watching them run. Hope you enjoyed me taking them apart. A little bit of something different for each one. They all had their quirks, but I had a lot of fun, and I'm gonna go ahead and start working on some of those other models as well. A lot of the ones that are pretty much brand new don't need a whole lot of work, so hopefully it'll go by quickly. If I have any other interesting things to show, I will be sure to show you, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching.